Hey scholars, happy Thursday and welcome back to your writing lesson. Yesterday we were working on exclamation points and question marks. So thinking about whether a sentence is an excited statement or if it's asking a question and what the correct punctuation is for that. Today in punctuation, we are going to be focusing on quotation marks. Now, I know that you've done some work with Mr. Yu already on quotation marks in your creative writing enrichment class, so hopefully this is review for some of you. And if not, that's okay. We can go ahead and learn this together. Now, we use quotation marks, which are these little guys here. Those are quotation marks, and we use them to show when a person is talking. Anytime someone is talking and writing, we call that dialogue. You've probably heard your homeroom teacher use this word before, dialogue, to talk about when a character is talking in a story. So anytime we have dialogue, we use quotation marks as a pair. That means there's two of them. So quotation marks at the front and quotation marks at the end. We put them at the beginning of when the person's talking and at the end of when the person's talking. Ms. Metz has 3 examples here, and I'm going to show you using my red color just some important things that I want you to notice. So it says, Ms. Metz said, comma. This comma is super important here because this comma tells us we're about to transition into dialogue. It's that natural pause. It creates a pause in the sentence to say the author is now done sharing or the narrator is done sharing and now the character is talking. We're getting ready for some dialogue. So we have the comma and then we have our first quotation mark. And Ms. Metz is saying, take out your composition book. Period. The punctuation goes inside that final quotation mark. That last quotation mark is the very end of this sentence. Comma, quotation mark, period, quotation mark. Let's take a look at the next one. This one says, take out your composition book, said Miss Metz. This time, the dialogue goes first and that narration goes second. So first, we have quotation mark, the dialogue, comma, again, that natural pause, quotation mark on the outside. Quotation mark is always going to go on the outside of the punctuation. Said Miss Metz, period, end of the sentence. Last example here, we have, you can, said Miss Metz, take out your composition book. This time the dialogue is in 2 parts of the sentence. It's at the beginning and it's at the end of the sentence. And it's broken up in the middle with that narration there. So we have quote, our quotation mark, you can, comma, quote, said Miss Metz, another comma, because now we're moving into our second piece of dialogue, comma, quote, take out your composition book, period, quote. I know this seems like a lot, but we're going to get some practice in and it's going to start to become super natural to us. So let's go ahead and move to our first practice problem. And I'd like you to take out your composition book. Miss Metz says, take out your composition book. Here's our first example. Go ahead and write this down in your composition book. Jacob said, I will let you borrow my toy. After you write this down in your composition book, we're going to work together to figure out where our quotation marks should go. All right, let's go ahead and figure out where do we put the quotation marks here in this sentence. We know that Jacob is speaking. There's dialogue here. This comma tells us that after this comma, we have dialogue. Comma, quote. I will let you borrow my toy. Period, quote. Notice how the comma is in front of the quotations at the beginning, and the period goes on the inside of the quotation marks at the end. Jacob said, I will let you borrow my toy. Go ahead and add those quotation marks in your sentence in your composition book, and when you're ready to move on to the next sentence, press play on the video. Okay, looking at our next sentence here. Marissa yelled, give it back to me. Again, just like our last example, we see a narration and then we see dialogue right after it. So we have Marissa yelled, the subject and the verb, and then we have her dialogue here. Give it back to me. Write this down in your composition book and think about, where exactly are the quotation marks going to go? Marissa yelled, comma, quotation. Give it back to me. The exclamation point is going to go inside that quotation mark. If we put the quote inside, that is not correct because the exclamation point is part of that dialogue. She's yelling, give it back to me. So the exclamation point goes inside that quote. We're ready to move on to our next one. Those are my Pokemon cards, said Jose. Go ahead and write this down inside your composition book. Something you'll notice is that the narration is now at the end. That verb and the subject are at the end now, said Jose. Not like our last example where it was at the beginning, but at the end. So this might change the order of our quotation marks and where they go in this sentence. Let's see where we put them. I found our dialogue. Those are my Pokemon cards. I know that the quote is going to go in front of those to start the quotation or to start the quote. And then the comma is going to go inside the quotation mark. The punctuation will always go inside of the quotation mark. Those are my Pokemon cards, said Jose. Make sure you have that in your composition book and we'll get ready to move to the next sentence. They're mine, said Damien, because I bought them. Here we have a sentence very similar to this sentence from our last example. You can, said Miss Metz, take out your composition book. We can look right now and see that there were 1, 2, so our first pair of quotation marks, and 1, 2, our second pair of quotation marks in this sentence. So 4 quotation marks in all, 2 pairs. So now that we saw that, we can come back to this sentence here, and we can think about, in the first piece of dialogue, we need to have quotation mark, there, mine, comma, quotation mark. There's our first pair. Said Damien, that's not part of the dialogue, so we do not put any quotation marks here. Comma, quotation mark, because I bought them, period, quotation mark. Again, that second pair of quotes. Dialogue, not dialogue, dialogue. Go ahead and check your composition book and make sure that you have the sentence written like this. Let's go ahead and move to our next sentence now. How many do you want? Asked Sally. Just like the Pokemon cards here, think about where your quotation marks need to go. Go ahead and write this in your composition book and think about where you're going to put those quotation marks. Okay, starting the dialogue, we put our opening quotation marks. How many do you want? The question mark goes inside the dialogue because that's part of the question that Sally is asking. And we close the quotations there. We have our pair of quotes and our dialogue's done. Awesome. Moving on to the next sentence. Jamila shouted, I won! Now, Jamila shouted is not part of the dialogue. All Jamila is saying is, I won. So write this down and think about where the quotation marks are going to go. Press play on the video when you're ready to check your work. Jamila shouted, comma, quotation, I won, exclamation point, quotation mark. Great job, you're getting the hang of this. Now we have 2 independent practice sentences for you to work on by yourself. And when you're ready, press play in the video so that you can check your work with mine. Go ahead and write both down and put the quotation marks where they need to go. Okay. I know, said Michael. The Legos go back in the box. Here we have another sentence where the dialogue is broken up into the beginning and the end of the sentence. So we're going to have 2 pairs of quotation marks, 4 in all. I know. That's our first set of dialogue, said Michael, comma, space, quotation. The Legos go back in the box. End quotation. Hope you got all 4 of those quotes. Remember, we do not put quotations around this part here, said Michael. That's not part of the dialogue. Last one. I'm looking forward to choice time tomorrow, said Kathy. All we have here is our first opening quotation there, comma, close quotations, said Kathy, period. Hope you got both of those right. If you made a mistake, you can fix it now. And I'm going to go over our work for today. On your quill, there's still punctuation lessons for you to be working on. Remember, quill is not required. You do not have to do it. Not everyone has quill or can get on the computer to do quill, and that's okay. If you have the opportunity to do quill, it's some really awesome practice that's going to help you grow your brain and grammar. We do have a worksheet today, and I'm going to show you that worksheet today. It's very similar to the work that we've been doing. Oh, what happened? It's similar to the work that we were just doing in our lesson right now. And there we go. Adding the quotation marks where they need to go. So seeing sentences that have dialogue and thinking about where we put those quotation marks, try rewriting the sentence again on that line. If you can't print this worksheet out, which is okay, Miss Metz doesn't have a printer at home, so I can't print anything out, just do this again in your composition book, writing these sentences out and adding the quotation marks. And lastly, for your independent practice for writing today, here is your writing prompt. It says, write a short, realistic fiction story about 2 characters who go to the grocery store. Make sure to use dialogue in your story to practice quotation marks. Now, we already did our unit on realistic fiction and writing. We know that that's a story that could happen, and everything in that story, from the characters to the setting to the actions and to the dialogue, is things that could happen in real life. So just write a quick story about 2 characters going to the grocery store. Good luck practicing your writing today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.